what's up? Hello, my name is Emma, and today I'm going to be giving you guys my review for the film adaptation of To All the Boys I've Loved Before. I got a super cool opportunity to actually view the film a few days before in theaters with a bunch of other fans of the book, so thank you so much to Goodreads and Riveted Lit for inviting me to that screening, but I've already watched it once more since, and I can just see myself rewatching it over and over and over again because I absolutely loved this movie. Overall, I think it was a really great YA adaptation and a good individual movie on its own. I would probably give it a 8.5 or even a 9 in terms of how accurate it was to the books, and probably also like an 8 or an 8.5, maybe a 9 actually, in terms of how great it was and how it stands on its own. Now, I have not read the first book in this series since 2014, so given I have forgotten a lot of the original source material, but it was so funny. I think that was definitely the biggest and the greatest improvement they have on the film. It was so unbelievably funny. I remember the books being filled with a lot of drama, and of course, like most contemporaries, it does have its funny moments, but the movie was absolutely hysterical in my opinion. I could not stop laughing the entire time, and it was a really great experience to watch. Just to throw in a few more non-spoiler thoughts before I jump into all of the nitty-gritty details of the movie, I loved the chemistry between Lara and Peter. It was so fantastic on screen. Again, this is a really difficult book for me to compare to the movie because I read it so many years ago, but I honestly feel like I liked the relationship in the film better than the books, even though there is more content and there are more scenes with them together in the books. It came across so well, and like their banter and the way they played off of each other, it was just intoxicating. Though I do adore this movie so much. It's probably one of my favorite movies I've seen all year. I do feel like the acting was a little bit off in some scenes, just certain character interactions and just even the way that certain scenes were portrayed. I just felt like it wasn't super convincing at certain points, but there were other points where it was really great, so I don't know what happened there. And also, in certain parts of the film, I feel like it did lack a little bit of development. This is a big story with a lot of backstories and character dynamics that are already established that we have to learn about in the film and the book. There was already a ton of exposition in the movie, and I just feel like because of the format and the necessary need to cut things down and shorten the overall story, some things got lost in the mix. But overall, it was really fantastic. I loved it so much. I'm going to rewatch it for the rest of my life, and I hope you all do as well. So it is currently out on Netflix globally. If you have access to Netflix, I would definitely recommend you go watch it and come back so we can chat. But bye, non-spoiler people. So when the movie opens up and we have this scene of all of these bright green trees and mountains, I'm like, what the fuck did they do to this movie? And then as soon as Lara Jean gets hit in the face with a pillow, I am like, I am going to love this. So somehow I lost like 10 minutes of raw footage, whatever. YouTuber of the year. So one of my absolute favorite things about this film was the attention to detail. Now, it may not seem like it because when I review book to film adaptations, I can be a little nitpicky. Shadowhunters. But honestly, if you follow the general plot line, I'm pretty much satisfied. I've never been one of those fans to like really need all of the specific lines and all of the specific scenes. Like, I care mostly that the story arc is the same, which To All the Boys I've Loved Before did complete. But in this film, I did notice quite a few little details that really weren't that significant to the overall plot, but they were kept in from the book, and I really appreciated that. Things like Lara Jean not being able to drive and Kitty doing Lara Jean's hair, that's mentioned quite a few times in the film, and it's something that's present in all of the books, so I really appreciated that. Also, the scene where Lara Jean is making cupcakes for Kitty's bake sale, and Margot is like, you should make brownies, they're easier, that's what I make. Like, there were just a lot of minuscule details that didn't really play into the larger plot of the story, but they were still kept in from the book, and it's something that I really noticed and very much appreciated. So I think this is the first book to movie adaptation I have reviewed this year, and so I have to get into one of my biggest pet peeves that happens recurringly in all of these adaptations. Okay, so I don't know what this film term actually is. If anyone studies film and can clarify in the comments, I would greatly appreciate it. But I fucking hate this trend that is very prevalent in YA contemporary contemporary book adaptations for some reason, but it is when they include scenes that aren't actually a part of the present story. I like get so heated and I don't know how to describe it, but an example in this film is when Lara Jean is like going over her letter to Josh, and she's thinking about how her letter to her sister's ex-boyfriend got out and whatever, and then Josh is in the room and he's like talking to her and they're having a conversation and he's reading the letter, but like it doesn't actually happen. Listen, this is the hill that I'm willing to die on. This film technique is so tacky and cheap. It is the dumbest thing ever, and it frustrates me to no end every single time I see it. It was just so unnecessary. Like, that scene added nothing to the development of the relationship between Lara Jean and Josh, and it didn't actually happen, so what is the point of including it? I would have so much preferred another scene with Lara Jean and Josh talking about things, because that's something that is definitely played down in the film, and it would have made so much more sense for them to have like an active scene where things can actually be established than this throwaway scene that makes no sense. Whatever this is called, it makes me so mad, and I cannot wait for it to die out, because there's no way this is going to be a long-lasting trend in film, but it just makes me so angry when scenes are included that like don't actually happen and they don't provide any sort of additional context for the film. Moving on to talking about characters, not every actor fit the role of what I imagined in my head for these characters based on their personal appearance, but I really feel like they all embodied the true nature of all of these characters, and that's the most important thing for me. Lara Jean was great. I particularly loved all of her outfits in this movie. If you don't know, I recently did a video where I dressed like book characters for a week and I dressed like Lara Jean, so I was like very familiar with her outfits going through the book so recently, and they like really hit it great on the head for the film. And I just feel like they really accomplished including all of her layers, from being like the innocent good girl to being afraid of taking new risks and letting people into her life. It was just all around a really fabulous character execution. Kitty was flawless in my opinion. I know they aged her up a little bit for the film, but honestly I did not even notice for a long time, because she was just so unapologetically Kitty. Every single one of her jokes hit at the right moment. She was so funny, so adorable, really flawless character execution. Peter was also so funny. Like, again, I just don't remember him being this funny in the book, but the actor who played him, just the way he delivered all of his lines, it was so freaking good. Chris has this devil-may-care attitude, and she was just like picked directly out of the book. It was really great. Jen has this bitchy attitude. Like, they were just all so good. If anything, the characters I feel that lacked development were Lara's dad, because I feel like up until the point where they were sitting in the diner talking about Lara's mom, I just feel like I didn't feel any of the connection between him and the song sisters that I do in the book. Also, Margot, I totally get that Margot is not a present character in either form of this story, but we do definitely get exposed to her more in the book, and I feel like we were just lacking some scenes with her to get more depth, and she was kind of just resorted to this archetype of the older sister, and I would have liked to see more of her. But again, when she does come home and her and Lara fight, and then they actually talk about it, like the ending of the song sisters, their relationship was perfect. I just wish there were a few more interactions with Margot thrown in there just to like really establish her as a character. And also Josh. I feel like Josh was also just like resorted to like this one character with this one motivation in the film, and I feel like we definitely do get to see a lot more of him in the book. And that also rolls over to my next point about the film, is that I feel like they really toned down the love triangle in the movie. In the book, there's definitely these two distinct love interests of Peter Kay and Josh, and you know, Lara goes through a lot of questioning and contemplation between the two of them. Who does she really like, and who is the person that she wants to be with? In the film, it was just very focused on Peter Kay, and Josh was always this person that was just sort of pining after Lara, and they didn't really have many meaningful interactions that could make him a viable love interest, and I feel like that is something that actually harmed the movie. I just feel like in the book, you definitely could have been Team Josh or Team Peter, but with the way the movie is formatted and all of the scenes that they cut down with Lara and Josh, I feel like you really couldn't push for them to be together, and it was just all focused on Lara and Peter. Also, I am aware of the fact that I keep saying Lara instead of Lara Jean, which is her full name, but that's because I'm trying really hard to say Lara instead of Lara, because y'all like to drag me for that. So, again, going back to the humor of the movie, because I think it was just done so well. There's just endless moments throughout the film that had me like clutching my stomach in laughter. Like, I think it's when Josh shows up at Lara Jean's house and she would rather go out the window and fall off the roof than talk to him. Oh my god, that was so funny. Again, the banter between Lara Jean and Peter in the cafe when he like really confronts her for the first time and she tells him that like she doesn't have a crush on him now. Every single line in that scene was executed perfectly. The scene at the party where Peter and Lara Jean are like becoming each other's phone backgrounds, like that was just so adorable. Also at the party scene, I loved when Genevieve was trying to taunt Lara Jean and she was like, oh, do you want a juice box or chocolate milk? And Lara Jean is just like, Peter's getting me a drink. It was so good! Also, Lara Jean's dad eavesdropping on Lara Jean and Chris when they were talking about the ski trip. That was very unexpected and extremely funny. What I really love about the To All the Boys movie is that they did not water down this extremely valuable story just to romance. This first story arc was definitely toned down a little bit in the movie, and I do wish they had developed more on it, but it is the fact that the Song sisters are 3 half Korean, half white sisters that are being raised by just a white man, and so their dad really does try to incorporate their Korean culture into their household, even though it's not something that he can necessarily relate to. Like in the beginning when he's trying to make them Korean food because it's how their mom used to make it, it was just so sweet. And not only also with Lara Jean's mom having passed away, but also the plot line of Peter's dad having left their family and having all of these new kids and this new wife. Like those two storylines meshed together so well, and I loved every time that Lara Jean and Peter were able to talk about it. I feel like a lot of times in YA adaptations, the love interest backstory and their family life can really be condensed down to almost nothing for the sake of the romance, and I really appreciated how they really kept in and especially developed Peter's relationship with his father and just had this meaningful conversation between the two of them, comparing their different family dynamics in Peter's kitchen. It was really nice. The one scene that was like distinctly off for me is when Lara Jean and Peter go to get food after the party, and there's just this weird dynamic going on. You know, Peter's talking about how he's like very annoyed with Genevieve and how she's acting, and like we're starting to get a feeling that he's not liking her as much anymore, but then Lara Jean gets really jealous when Peter says that he calls her every night, which like understandable because she's starting to like him, but like she knows that the whole point is that Peter and Jen can get back together. That's why they're fake dating. And then Peter's like defending himself and Lara Jean is like, well, it's like all for pretend, so I shouldn't care. And like, I get how they all feel those things at the same time, but the way it came across in the scene was not cohesive at all for me, and like each mood change felt very distinct from one another and it didn't flow in my opinion. Also, the weird thing about reviewing this film is that there's so many things that make me angry about it, but like they're not things that changed in the movie. Like I know these are things that happened from the books. Like when Jen takes Lara Jean's scrunchie from Peter, it's just like, I knew it was gonna happen, but like still, why didn't he say, no, give me that back, it's not yours, and let her keep it for like a month, 2 months? Why would he do that? Also, when he goes to Genevieve's room, my blood boils, and it's like, I get he was trying to do the nice thing, but just Peter K makes me so annoyed sometimes no matter how much I love him. First of all, everything about the hot tub scene was perfect. It was identical to the mood in the books and it just translated perfectly onto screen. I loved it so much. I'm not even going to lie to you, I started crying at that moment because it reminded me so much of me and my boyfriend and I missed him. So like, mission accomplished, Netflix. The other time I cried while filming, I cried 2 other times in the movie. The other time was when Peter was talking about how he went across town to the Korean market to get all of Lara Jean's favorite snacks and he really wanted to sit with her, and it was just so honest and vulnerable and adorable, and I was just really overwhelmed. I think that was the same scene when Lara Jean and Peter were fighting because she was really upset with him and he was frustrated because she didn't understand that he wasn't trying to hurt her, and then Josh comes in and starts a fight with Peter K, and then Margot finds out that Lara Jean had a crush on Josh and wrote him a love letter, and that scene was really well done. It was like non-stop drama and I like didn't know where it was gonna go. And I of course loved the moment when we find out that Kitty sent out Lara Jean's letters because she wanted her to be happy and to have a boyfriend, and the way that Lara Jean just starts attacking Kitty and she runs into the closet with like this like unicorn grabber thingy. Oh my god, it was so funny. Every scene with Kitty was absolutely perfect. Also, another really funny moment is when Lara Jean confronts Peter at the very end and she's like there to tell him that she likes him, and he's like, what'd you do in here? And she's like, I drove here. I just wanted to tell you that. Okay, bye. Also, the third time I cried was when Peter told Lara Jean that he was in love with her, because it was really cute, okay? I also really loved the parallel to the very first scene of the movie. I don't know if this is exactly how it ends in the book, but when she's like, I always imagined falling in love in a field, just not one where you play lacrosse, and it's like a sort of parallel to the beginning when she's imagining herself with Josh in the field, and now she's with Peter on the lacrosse field, and it's like no longer a fantasy. It was so good. That was a really, really good like cinematic moment. Also, the final thing we have to talk about is the very short scene at the end of the credits. I really hope that you guys managed to stay the extra like minute to see this, but John Ambrose McLaren shows up at Lara Jean's door with his letter. I'm pretty confident that's not how Lara Jean and John Ambrose reconnect in the books. I'm pretty sure he writes her a letter back, but nonetheless, it does set it up for a sequel, and Netflix, please make a sequel. Those are really all of my thoughts on the To All the Boys I've Loved Before movie. I really loved it. I thought it was just so fantastic in terms of being an accurate adaptation and really capturing this story that so many people love while also being its own independent, sort of cute, funny rom-com. It was just all around great. Definitely let me know in the comments below what you guys thought of the To All the Boys I've Loved Before movie, because I'm just going to rewatch it for forever. But that is it for this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you soon for a new one. Bye!